From architects to builders, designers, and more, let's explore the art of modern living together.
All right. How do you craft a modern luxury home that not only stands out, but also belongs in the desert? Today, we sit down with architect Brent Kendle to explore his philosophy of regional modernism, his design inspirations, and how he embraces the unique challenges of building in the Sonora climate.
That's right. Brent's the founder and principal of Kendle Design Collaborative, a renowned architecture firm specializing in modern site-responsive design. With a deep appreciation for the Sonoran Desert, Brent has mastered the art of creating homes, modern homes that harmonize with their natural surroundings. His work is often defined by a seamless connection between indoor and outdoor living, innovative use of materials like rammed earth, and a commitment to crafting spaces that elevate the human experience.
All right.
Very nice.
Welcome to the podcast.
Did you write that or did we write that? That sounds good. We want to steal it.
Maybe a little both. Maybe I stuck some things in AI. Who knows?
Well, welcome to our podcast.
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
We're happy to have you. All right. We absolutely love your designs. As you know, know all of them. Anyway, and it's true, the designs definitely stand out, but at the same time, they very much belong to the desert landscape. We're going to incorporate some photos of your work in the podcast, but I'd like to start out. Could you help us define this concept of regional modernism? Help define it to our listeners.
So I mean, let's see how to explain it. To me, it's kind of trying to find the spirit of a place and kind of manifest that in the design of the project. I mean, modernism and to me, it's not a style, it's a process, and it's a process of problem solving. So when you add kind of that regional, the culture and history, the materials, the climate, specific to the site and all of that, and you kind of blend that into a kind of a modernist program along with the client's goals, you end up with something, I believe, or at least we attempt to end up with something that looks like it belongs where it is. To me, I think that if you look at a picture of a piece of architecture, it could be anywhere in the world. You might look at it on the internet, as everybody does now. You ought to have a sense just from the architecture. It should give you cues of where it is in the world. Is it in a desert environment? Is it in a wooded environment? Is it at the beach? Is it in a cold environment? Those are going to be, different responses, architectural responses. So I think that's what it means to me. It's kind of, it's just part of the puzzle of understanding the spirit of a place. And then, it's that kind of artistic element to architecture of trying to, how do you infuse that into the design of a project?
I like that, and you can definitely see that in your work.
Well, thank you.
Yes, and they do very much blend in, but they stand out too. I mean, we notice them and we're like, that is an amazing house, but it doesn't like stick out, or you don't look at it, oh, that doesn't belong here,
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really fortunate. I think we tend to attract clients that are not interested in being boastful about, or being showy. They are more about being sensitive to the environment and are comfortable with themselves and don't have to prove anything to anyone. And they're looking for something that I think is not just a more unique artistic expression, maybe of where they've chosen to live, but also they're just very practical and pragmatic things. I mean, if you have a lot of exposed wood and things like that don't do well in the desert, like some, traditional styles have promoted in the past, you've got constant maintenance on those things. Now most of my clients they don't want to be slaves to their home. They want, the home to perform like something that was designed for this climate. Or if we're working up in Montana right now, that's a completely different climate. So you understand what's unique about that, and you select materials and details that deal with that. And as a result, that kind of the visual, what people see looks unique to that area.
Well, I think you may have just answered part of my next question, but when we had our pre-show call, we talked about how your homes don't trade hands very often. And we know the ones that have like set records. Why do you think it is that your clientele builds their home with you and then they stay there?
Well, again, I think we're really fortunate. And part of it may be that we focus on kind of, the luxury, high end. Yeah. So a lot of our clients have kind of had their homes along the way that they've kind of moved up, raised families in or whatever. We have, just in the last couple of years, I have noticed multiple clients during the kind of the programming phase of work where we try to get to know the client and they answer a lot of questions for us that they've spoken about. We want a legacy home. And, I don't just assume I know what that means. I ask them kind of what that means. But, I think what's common about most of their feeling about creating a legacy home is they're looking to build something of long-term value, not something that's just, this is great and it looks cool and it's trendy and I'm going to be, I'm going to sell it in 5 years and make a lot of money and move on to another home. They're looking at doing something that's going to be multi-generational, something that's going to be almost like a family heirloom, if you will. And so they're more serious about the design decisions that they make and the material choices they make and the quality that they put into it, which was something, when I started here in school in the late 70s and 80s, Phoenix wasn't really known for building those higher quality homes. I mean, I come from the Chicago area and there's, great buildings that have been there for hundreds of years. And, they built to last in those environments. They didn't used to do that here so much. But I've felt for a while now that the Valley has been going through this kind of architectural renaissance, if you will. And some of it's an influx, I'm sure, of people from outside that maybe had higher demands than the people that were here before. But the homes that we're building today are of significant higher quality in every aspect than they were back in the 70s and 80s. And so they're more built to last, and clients seem to be more willing to, or they find value in it costs more, unfortunately, but they find value that they see the value in building higher quality that's going to last longer.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if we go back to that home that was a record-breaking house that sold for $2,016 price per foot. And you held that record for many years, that house, and we talked about it all the time. But if you go back to saying your clients were thinking about legacy and generational, I feel like maybe that particular property didn't, because it was a smaller footprint. I want to say it only had like 3 bedrooms, and maybe that is why it changed hands, because they outgrew it or whatnot. And the record has been broken by now, like just a couple months ago. I think the new record in Arizona is $2,058 a foot. Is what we're sitting at in Paradise Valley. But so you need to re-break it by something, encourage one of your sellers to sell. Right. But when we were talking about the one that sold for $2,058 a foot, it was a giant estate. It was 17,000, how many square feet was the one? And had all these amenities and everything.
20,000 square feet.
But the homes that you're doing, it's the fit and finish. It's the quality that's.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that I personally take pride, like that home. People are used to seeing, this home broke all the records and, some ball player bought it in Paradise Valley or something like that. And, it's got a bowling alley in the basement, and it's got a shooting range, and it's got all of these amenities. And the home, our Dancing Light home that broke that record, it was all about the architecture and the quality of materials and the quality of the spaces and its relationship to the land around it and the views of Camelback Mountain. And so there was no theater room. There was, the most kind of luxury item in it was a bowl-top kitchen. The owner knew he wanted to have a bowl-top kitchen before he knew he wanted me to be his architect, so.
But the rammed earth walls, the roof structure, it is just interesting what people consider luxury, right? Yes. And not quality. But anyway, well, any spec houses or any?
We've done some spec houses. Our focus really is site specific and more often than not client specific. And so, with a spec house, you're kind of trying to hit, 90% of the market. And you're trying to build for less money because it's very cost driven. So there are some, some qualitative compromises that seem to be made. I enjoy doing spec houses because they're just, it's kind of like,
you have free reign to design what you want to design. So.
Yes and no. I mean, again, you're trying to meet the market, and there's a lot of creative or cool ideas we'd like to do. That's like, well, that's going to be, not everybody's going to like that.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of there's a little bit of dumbing it down. And most of the spec houses that we've done, we've only done a few, are clients that want to do something unique, because so many of the spec houses just all look the same. Mm-hmm. They're all, if you're in PV, it's all white boxes, and if you're in Arcadia, it's all modern farmhouse. And we don't want to do either of those. And so we have been hired to do some that kind of, I think, from a marketing standpoint, to maybe stand out or give them something different to put out there.
Yeah. And again, I was just selfishly asking because beSpoke wants to sell a Brent Kendle house. So if any of your clients ever want to sell, we have a lot of architects on our resume, but not one of your property. So, all right. I was at the Iconic Design Awards where you won some awards. So that was exciting. I'm sorry, Iconic you won, but you also won at Design 9, I think the Desert Jewel House, which we have up here. Can you talk a little bit about your projects? And I've been in this home, it's spectacular.
Well, thank you. Our Desert Jewel home was, I think, the most unique thing about it from us, from a design standpoint. It was a piece of property in Paradise Valley that, pretty much everything around it had been developed over the years. But there was this one lot with a giant rock outcropping right in the middle of the building envelope. And I don't think anybody wanted to touch it, because certainly any spec builder would look at it and go, that's just going to be, it's going to take a ton of money to move that rock to put the house right in the middle of it. We were fortunate to have a client that originally built it. I think saw the value in that lot, probably got it at a good value because nobody else wanted to build on it too. Of course, it has great views because it's elevated. And we're willing to embrace the rock outcropping as kind of a component of the house. So while it's a very modern house, and you might argue that it's maybe looks less indigenous than some of the homes that we do, because it's it looks like it's black and white, even though it's not, because it had to meet hillside. So all those colors are darker than they appear. Yeah. But that rock outcropping that was there actually makes it a good neighbor to the neighborhood, because if you're driving around in the neighborhood, you barely know there's a house there. If you're in the house, and our clients had, like most of our clients, have a very high privacy requirement that they'd like to have. And so that rock outcropping helps with that. I mean, the primary bedroom in that house looks right into the rock outcropping. It becomes kind of a shield to the neighborhood, but also becomes this kind of beautiful, kind of jewel, if you will, to look into. So
with offering the privacy that the clients
right. And so, yeah, it was, like all projects, there was a problem to solve. It was a very small footprint. It was a very small allowable footprint, because it was a kind of a virgin hillside lot. And most of the lots that we end up seeming to build on in Paradise Valley tend to be lots that were built on previously. And so you have a larger buildable area that's kind of grandfathered in. But a lot like this, it was much more restrictive. So it kind of pushed us into doing a 2-level home where we could put the garages and laundry and the entry and so forth on the lower level. But that allowed us to then elevate the main living level so it has amazing views across the whole valley. So, and you can see the pool there, to have a, pool that literally sits about 20 feet off of the ground. You have some great views, obviously, from there, but also an amazing amount of privacy because none of the neighboring properties can see
You're above it.
you.
Yeah, you're floating
on the
when
pool.
you're out there. You're
So
really
it's kind of like being in it has the benefits of like being in a high-rise penthouse, but on a lot in Paradise Valley with stunning views and a great neighborhood.
So there's a few more just driving. I mean, Brittainy and I are always in Paradise Valley driving around. So there's one like on the west side of Tatum that we saw, and another one over by the Paradise Valley Country Club. I think the photos we have up here is one you said is published, one's not published yet.
Neither of those homes are published yet. So we are literally still the Desert Geode home, which is the one that you mentioned. Yeah,
that's the one after this one.
We just got the final photography from that. This is that home.
I so badly want a tour of this. I don't know what it takes, but I mean, look at that photo.
That's amazing.
That was just kind of that's a kind of house that I guess I've kind of spent my whole career like waiting for that kind of moment to happen, because that was a client where, part of our process is at the very beginning when we do conceptual design, we do everything in 3D, and it's still like, bubble diagrams, but they're three-dimensional and so forth. And then we give them kind of an architectural feel, and we always do multiple options. So we did 4 or 5 different options of how we might build that particular site for the client. And I always like to do one that's kind of out there that, they're never going to go for this. These are like nice folks from Wisconsin. They don't build houses like this, And we went through that, and the first one said, we like the first one. And I was like, oh, I like you,
I love it.
And so they were so supportive throughout the whole process. And so it came out great. And we're real proud of it.
Curious who the build and landscape architect was on that property.
So Caldwell Sheeler was the landscape architect.
Okay.
So it was Caldwell Sheeler was on Weisman and Gale helped out with interior design.
Okay.
And we did all the architectural interior design, so all the stairs and fireplaces and millwork and all that stuff. The builder was Greg Hunt, and who did a great job. And then this is actually a different project. This is the one off of
Desert Fairways?
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Can we talk about that one?
Sure.
So this one has not been published, but I did drive by this one also, and I was like, that is...
This home, when we interviewed for this project, it was the builder on this, John Gurley, had done a few projects for this client. And so he put us on a list, and we interviewed, and I wasn't sure who the client was. And then I realized the husband was the CEO for a large construction firm that my old firm, Kennard Hedrick, had actually done all the tenant improvements for when they first came to the Valley. And they were very forward thinking. They were green before people used that as a buzzword for sustainability. I mean, they recycled everything. They just had this great culture there, and they were always kind of very ahead of the bar as far as commercial and institutional contractors went. And they were also the first project we ever did that the centerpiece of the office for this construction firm was a wine bar. And so they were very social.
Sounds like a fun place to work.
So my thought was, oh my gosh, I have to get this project because, turns out I kind of know, this person, but most important, it was like, this is somebody who knows about, quality details and craft, and is going to be very demanding. And this is going to give us our opportunity to be that way. And then the wife turns out that she was a Herman Miller dealer And so she is like, I mean, it's kind of the pinnacle of, mid-century modern furniture and craft and all that. And so I was like, oh my gosh, the bar was set very high. And so we challenged ourselves on that a great deal, and the level of detail and so forth. I mean, the pictures don't do it justice. If you look at the level of detail in there, it's just amazing.
I think the other photo, is that a rammed earth fireplace that I saw?
There is.
Some accent
right.
walls.
Uh-huh.
I feel like you do more rammed earth than most other architects, at least currently that I've been seeing out there.
It's when we're talking about kind of regional modernism and that, and I talked about trying to figure out kind of the spirit of a place. If you want to get real esoteric, I mean, think about if you actually take the soil from the site, and then you craft a modern home out of that. How can you infuse the spirit of the site more into that home?
Are you actually using the soil that you're finding on the site for the rammed earth?
We have. They don't all. It doesn't always work that way, but in fact, the first rammed earth house I did was with Andy, our Desert Wing home, and there they actually did use soil from the site, and then I think another site where they were doing some rammed earth work not too far away, and so at the end of the day, you have this wall that, I mean, when we did that first one, it got posted on the internet, and a lot of people would send messages and ask, what is that? Like, they just had no idea what it was. And what I loved about it was, it's like walking down in the canyon somewhere, and you see a canyon wall. It has all that kind of strata, and it's it's just a very unique material that, again, I think kind of infuses the spirit of the land. It has some great thermal properties too. So from a green standpoint, sustainability standpoint, it's a great material. Very expensive material, unfortunately, but it's also an opportunity to take something that's a 3,000-year-old technology and use it in a modern building. And so it kind of ties the past to the present in a way that I find really fascinating. But because we've done a couple, starting with that Desert Wing home, and a lot of clients would come in and say, I want that. And I try to tell people, well, let's see if you're a rammed earth client or not, right? Because it's not for everybody. It is expensive, partly just because of the process, partly because it just takes long to build, and then you have to protect it through construction. So it's because it's you don't want to mess it up. But
what about the maintenance and the longevity of it?
Well, so like the home that you saw up there, we used Firewall, which is a proprietary brand of rammed earth. We've kind of learned our lesson. We've done a few homes in rammed earth that unfortunately required more maintenance, and we found that using Firewall, that their process and so forth, you can basically take a baseball bat to it and hit it. So there's low maintenance. But what I was saying is I try to kind of test clients and to say, we love that look, that's what we want. And so I kind of asked them about their views on what is on beauty. Is something beautiful something that comes out perfect, that the way it's going to come out? Because I was like, rammed earth, you do a sample wall of it and you approve that, and then you build these much larger walls with it, and you're kind of ramming this stuff down into this formwork that might stay on for a couple months. And then when they pull it off, it's kind of like, it is what it is. And it's not perfect. And sometimes it cracks, and sometimes parts of it fall off. So I use it like, kind of the beauties of the 50s, the Marilyn Monroe's, like, is it a mole or is it a beauty mark? Because if something kind of spalls off. I mean, I always remember, Eddie Jones did, his own home using rammed earth, and of course it cracked like crazy. And then he went in and I think put gold leaf and little different size marbles, and it became a thing of art, And if you look at it that way, and you look at it as a beauty mark and something that just yeah, it's just the natural nature of it, then you're not going to be disappointed. But if you want something to be perfect, go out and buy stone tile or something, and get it perfect.
So that's part of the test.
Yeah.
What's that?
That's part of the test.
Part of the
okay.
test.
It
yeah.
is a very polarizing thing. It's like, the stained concrete floors, like people either love them or hate them. And it's for some of those very reasons that you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The cracking and, are you going to be okay with this?
Yeah, no, and that's the same conversation we have. I mean, we love concrete floors. I think there's a lot of, we usually do like a terrazzo grind on them and they have an integral color. Sometimes we'll actually specify the aggregate in them to come up with a certain look. But if it's not what you want when it's done, it's kind of, your only solution is really to cover it up, so you better like it. So, and knowing that it's going to crack and that you can repair that and you can make it look good. And most of the homes we have, there's cracks in some of the concrete floors, but if you walked around it, you'd probably never notice it.
That's just part of it.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And of course, we do a lot of things to prevent that cracking. I mean, in the Dancing Light had concrete floors, and we actually did a 2-inch topping slab on that, which is most concrete contractors wouldn't touch. We had a really good concrete contractor on that said no problem, but we probably put in 3 times more saw cut control joints in that, try and help tell it where to crack. So.
Can you kind of walk us through your process with your clients? I know you kind of mentioned that discovery process. And
yeah, I always explain to clients, because we get a few clients who, because they've seen something and they've seen it published and they think that's a big deal, and which is great. That's we hope they see that and they come talk to us. But it's not about us. It's not. So it's a matter of trying to figure out what is it that the client wants. I mean, the very first home I ever designed was back in Oak Brook, Illinois. It was a passive solar home I designed when I was in college, and I remember when it was done. It finished up about a year after I graduated, and I remember the client saying, "This is exactly the home that we would have designed for ourselves if we had the talent or knew how to do that." And I thought, that is the best compliment I could ever have. It was never about me. It was always about them. And that comment kind of showed me that, I think what they were telling me is that you listened to us, and then you designed something that was unique to us. So that's our goal. It's never about us. It's always about them. It's also what makes it more interesting. When all the homes that you're showing here, and I think all the homes in our portfolio, there are few homes that really look similar to each other. I always said I want people to be able to drive by our homes and know it's a Kendle design home, but not that it just has that look, that there's something qualitative about it, that it must be that because it fits in so well or it's detailed so well or whatever that is.
Brent, let me just tell you, goal accomplished.
Oh gosh, thank you so much.
Different. And when I drive by, I'm like, that must be a Brent. It's got to be a Kendle.
That's true.
That warms my heart to hear.
And they don't look alike.
No.
It's not that they look alike. There is something about them.
Well, and that's just the fun. The fun of being an architect is ability to do something creative, and it's about kind of puzzle solving. And the puzzle is you've got this piece of land, and what's unique about that land? Okay, what's the spirit of that land? What's the spirit of that region? What is the land trying to tell us it wants to kind of have on it? And then you have a client that's got a program of how they want to live and why they chose that site, and that could be very different. And then, of course, you got codes and budgets and all those kinds of things so. Our biggest thing is trying to get to know the client well enough that when we're doing design work, we're thinking about, what would they do given these 3 choices of I can do this, this, or this. And so there's, our first process is we have about a 22 page questionnaire that's all qualitative questions. So it's not how big of a room do you want, but it's how are you going to use that space? How do you want to wake up in the morning? How do you want to feel? Do you want eastern light coming in? Do you want, do you want to be looking west so you can see kind of that reverse sunrise on the mountains to the west, or whatever it is? Or do you want to wake up when your alarm clock goes off and you want to be in total darkness until then? I mean, those are kind of easy things to point out, but just understanding how people want to live, how they spend their week, how they spend their weekends. And, it's funny. I mean, with all the fun, creative stuff that we do, and I get, really excited about, when that design comes together and all that, that's really exciting. But one of the things I've realized, later in my career is one of my favorite parts of the whole problem is that programming at the front end, because we work for a lot of really interesting people. I don't think we have any clients that are trust fund babies or, I mean, they're all self-made people who can afford, frankly, to do the kind of homes that we've been fortunate to do. And so during that programming process, you get to see kind of what makes them tick, what makes them unique, and then you go, gosh, I should be more like that.
I love it. It's like learning about how to be a leader, how to be a.
So love that part of it. Because we typically get very thoughtful answers from our clients on how they want to spend their day and what's unique about them, how they want to live. And of course, then the other part is the site, and it's just, the site analysis and all of that. And, where's the sun come from and all those kinds of things. Any of the vegetation, certainly that's on the site. I mean, if you're on a golf course, that's a very different exposure than this house that, is on a site that has a great view of Camelback Mountain. One of the things that's really unique about this project, so our client on this, their best friend, if I remember the story right, because I remember she called me, she's like, "You're never going to believe this." She's like, "I've been following you, online for, a while. And we've always wanted to do a house in Paradise Valley, but we couldn't find a lot. And then I realized on Facebook that one of my best friends from college lived here, and we got together for dinner. And we explained that we'd like to build a home so we could have our grandkids and so forth come back, but we can't find a lot." And they said, "Hey, we have a lot. We have a double lot, and we just haven't wanted to sell off the one lot that's in front of us because we're afraid somebody will block our view. So if you could design a home," and this is not a small home, "if you could design a home on this lot that didn't block our view, we would sell it to you." So we kind of had a little bit of a test that we had to
work
go
with
through.
the neighbor.
So
It's an acre?
yeah. So we
hillside or no hillside?
It's not hillside, but it's on the verge.
Yeah.
I mean, if you looked at the lot before, it had some topography to it. And so we literally had our survey for the lot before we ever really got the real job. We surveyed not just the lot, but we surveyed their lot, where their pool was, where it steps up to their breakfast area in their home, where they actually spent time looking at that view. And then our process is, we model everything in 3D, and we do panoramas from multiple locations. And so we did panoramic views from their terrace, from their breakfast area, from the pool. And so that our first meeting with the client to show them kind of the massing studies for their house on this lot included their neighbors. So they didn't have a signed deal on this yet. And we were able to show them that standing here, standing here, standing here, if the house is this tall and this is kind of the shape, here's what you're going to see. And they could see, we still see Camelback Mountain. We still see the valley. We still that. And so they literally inked the deal after that. But we had to guarantee this is the elevation, above sea level, that everything has to be below this. And so that was a unique situation.
Out of a whole new level, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, as a result, I think it was something like 700 truckloads of earth came out of that site. That's a 2-story house, but it's integrated, on one level, it's an upper level, it looks like 1 story. And It looks like one story kind of all the way around till you get to that back side where it really opens up and you kind of see inside the geode, if you will,
Wow, that's beautiful.
It's an aptly named design for sure.
But it's all about this kind of, well, that's another thing. I mean, when you talk about, again, site responsive design, I mean, you have this great view of Camelback, great views to the south, but you got a neighbor to the, southeast you don't really want to see. You've got a street that wraps around it. You've got most of the lot has a western exposure, which is the harshest sun from a heat gain and from a glare standpoint. And so it literally, the concept, is this kind of hard shell like a geode and then create this kind of deep shaded area where then kind of that crystalline interior could happen. And it's very transparent on the inside. So it just kind of stuck, that desert geode concept.
Beautiful. All right. Thank you for sharing that with us. All right. We're going to do a couple rapid fire questions if you're up for it. They're easy. Yeah. You ready?
Is this where we talk about politics and religion?
No. Who is your favorite realtor? I'm going to keep using that
beSpoke,
one. Okay.
of course.
Right? Thank you. All right.
Perfect answer.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite room or space in the house to design and why?
Favorite space in the house. It's probably cheating to say great room because, it's kitchens are kind of where everything happens. And so much, and it's also a tougher puzzle piece because to do an open kitchen, you want it to look beautiful, but you want it to be serviceable. If you design for somebody who actually enjoys cooking, then it's going to be a mess. And so what do you do with that mess? You don't, so if you have a great room concept, you don't want people, your guests, your dinner guests to kind of look up and go, oh, the kitchen's a mess. Let me help you with those plates. And as soon as that happens, the party's over. Yep. I say it. So it's like, you're in your third bottle of wine, you're just getting to the good stuff, you're past the small talk. And then somebody says, let me help you with those dishes. And the party's over. Yep. So, designing a kitchen that works that way, we do a lot of kind of, back kitchens so that all the dirty dishes can move back there and the rice cookers and whatever it might be, they can all hide in the back. And so because kitchens are kind of on display, they're like a fine piece of furniture today. And you want them to work, but you want them to look good.
That's a great answer. Any fun hobbies not architecture related?
Well, so I've been a drummer most of my life. I was a drummer before I knew I wanted to be an architect, and often thought about taking that path. So I guess the most unusual thing that people find unusual, when I was 15 years old, I got asked to sit in with a band, and because they couldn't find a drummer. And they were all older. I was 15 and they were all professional musicians. And it was an Elvis impersonator band. And so I sat in just so they could practice while they would search for another drummer, and ended up getting the job, which I wasn't applying for. But at 15, it's like, oh, I can be in this. So I was in a Elvis impersonator show band when I was 15, and somehow talked my parents and let me do this. And we did some touring in the Midwest and played a lot of clubs and stuff. So, we didn't play anywhere that I was legal age to get into. So that's kind of my thing. And I still play the drums. I still enjoy it. Would love to find, some like-minded folks who would want to play, but don't want to have to go out and do gigs, because it's like, as a drummer, it's the worst, I mean, I wish I could just be I could just be a banjo player, or something, but no, a drummer, I have this big Neilpert drum set, and, it's just like, it takes 3 hours to tear it down and 3 hours to pack it back up. And you
could just host all the gigs at one of your houses.
Right. Would love that. But then I also have an Elvis tree. So somehow we started a Elvis Christmas tree, Elvis Christmas ornament thing years ago. So now, I think Phoenix Home and Garden just had it in their December issue, and it was our Elvis tree. So I collect Elvis ornaments. Yeah.
And we know what to get you for thank you gift. Exactly. Yeah. I don't have to keep an eye out for that on the Home and Gardens. All right, favorite piece of architecture?
Ooh. Favorite piece of architecture. I was really fortunate to finally, my bucket list, it's hard to believe I waited till I was about 60 or 62 to see it, but it was Falling Water.
Falling Water.
Falling Water. Yeah, that's just, it's so remarkable. But then, I would like to get into Kaufman's Desert House and see that. So favorite, I say that, but almost anything by John Lautner. I've been fortunate to be in the Sheets Goldstein home, which is one of the most photographed homes in the world, in LA, and was in another, what's it called? Silver Lake home that he did. And they're just, they were done in the 40s, 50s, 60s, some in the 70s, but they're just remarkable. I mean, they're just, more modern and cooler than just about anything done today even. So that's, I draw a lot of inspiration from that.
Very cool. Let's see. What's the best part of designing homes in the desert?
Well, we are, I grew up in the Midwest, where, weather is definitely a thing. So one of the things that always attracted me to move out in the first place was just the striking landscape and the contrasts, to see just looking at like a cactus, for instance, with the big spines, but then when you see like an Ed Mell painting or something, that cactus blossom, I mean, it's so delicate and so beautiful. And so the desert's like that, and just the sky, the endless sky, the sun. I always say that, that the sun it's our greatest commodity. And so kind of, use it in your architecture. I mean, like on Dancing Light, we did studies on just the depth of the ribs on the standing seam metal walls and so forth, to cast enough shadow so that as the sun panned over the house, the shadows would change. And so when the clients walked by the atrium and looked at this big metal wall, every time they walk by, it's a different expression, it just changes throughout the day. So you can't do that in the Midwest where it might be overcast for 8 days in a row.
Yeah.
It's kind of a wasted effort. So here I'd say my favorite thing is dealing with the sun and the ability to have this indoor-outdoor lifestyle that, you just can't have everywhere.
True. Very true.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you.
Yes.
That's great.
Yeah, we are going to share all of your contact information in our show notes, but if you could tell our listeners where to find you.
Oh, sure. We office at the Cattle Track Artist Compound. A lot of people don't know about, but it is really a gem. There's 3 buildings in the National Historic Register. Ours is not one of them, but it's a 1941 Adobe home that was designed and built by George Ellis, who notably taught Frank Lloyd Wright desert masonry and built what was the home that was up on 32nd Street that burned down years ago, the famous Frank Lloyd Wright home.
We were just talking about this because they have the Shiprock.
Shiprock, right.
I was talking about with you, but yeah. Is it called Shiprock?
Yeah.
No, it was for a lady. What was her name? Dory.
Yeah, I can't remember, but the curtains caught on fire and burned the house down.
And then they had to move Shiprock.
Right.
It's the entrance of Alta Vista Park.
Exactly. I think it was about right where 32nd Street came through. And so like George, to his daughter now is my landlord. George built that house. And so there's just a real interesting mix of all they allow to lease space. There are artists and people in the creative fields.
And Cattle Track is Lincoln. It's east of Scottsdale Road.
Yeah, so
Lincoln?
basically it's the same road as Miller. Once you hit Jackrabbit and go north, it turns into Cattle Track. And so we're and the Ellis family used to own a lot of that land around there.
So if people want to contact Brent Kendle, you go to your office?
Oh, I'm sorry. You can go to our website, kendledesign.com. That's probably a really good way. You can obviously call us, and probably the best way is a website. Instagram, all
Well,
the
now I want
good
to come
stuff.
see your office.
I know.
So
I
we'll be stopping by.
All right.
Sounds good.
Well, that's it for today's episode of Modern Home Mastermind. If you've enjoyed the show, please like, rate, or subscribe.
Yes, and thank you to our guests for sharing your insights and you for learning about everything modern with us.